Picture this. You're a Roman citizen, strolling through a bustling street market in the year 100 AD. Imagine seeing stalls piled high with clear glass cups, elegant jugs, even window panes, all affordable enough for a common baker or a legionary fresh from campaign to pick up on a whim. That image, for many of us, feels utterly impossible, doesn't it? We've been taught that fine glass was a medieval luxury, that transparent windows were a marvel of the Renaissance, and that ordinary people drank from humble clay or sturdy bronze. Yet, ancient Rome industrialized glass. They produced it on a scale we'd recognize today, much like we churn out plastic bottles, only to have the entire intricate process vanish for 1,000 years. How did they achieve such an astonishing feat? And why did this incredible system simply disappear? This isn't just a story about a lost technology, it's a window into the surprising ingenuity and eventual fragility of a vast empire. Before the Romans mastered this craft, glass was far from an everyday item. It was a rare, precious material, akin to fine jewelry. Think about it. Egyptian pharaohs might possess tiny, vibrantly colored glass beads. Mesopotamian kings would hoard intricate glazed bricks, and the Greeks, for all their sophistication, typically sipped their wine from sturdy pottery. The methods for creating glass were incredibly labor-intensive and slow. Take, for instance, the core-forming technique, prevalent for centuries. This involved painstakingly winding hot, molten glass around a core made of sand and animal dung. It took days of meticulous work to create a single perfume vial, often decorated with fragile, striped patterns. If that delicate core broke, you were left with nothing but fragments of a costly trinket. The price of such an item was astronomical, often equivalent to a legionary's entire month's wage. And as for transparency? Forget it. Early glass was typically bubbly, greenish, and largely opaque, offering little more than a hint of what lay within. The ancient world certainly had the fundamental raw ingredients: abundant beach sand, natron, a natural soda, sourced from Egyptian lake beds, and the intense heat of wood fires. What it desperately lacked was a method to rapidly transform a molten blob into a thin-walled, functional vessel. The processes of casting and polishing were slow and limited, the scale of production, while core forming restricted the size and shape of objects. This crucial shortcut, this transformative technique, finally emerged on the Syro-Palestinian coast around 50 BC. And the Romans, ever pragmatic and never shy about adopting a good idea, quickly recognized its potential and snapped it up. This innovation wouldn't just change how glass was made, it would redefine its very place in society. The name of the first glassblower is lost to history, an anonymous genius whose simple act revolutionized an entire industry. But the technology itself, once understood, is beautifully straightforward. Gather a gob of molten glass on the end of an iron tube, then puff air into it, watching as it inflates like a delicate balloon. Gravity and a wet wooden paddle do the rest, shaping the nascent vessel with surprising speed. This invention, appearing around 70 BC, spread with astonishing rapidity throughout the ancient world. Faster than the wheel, faster even than writing. Why such a swift adoption? Because every tavern owner, every merchant, every household wanted lighter, non-porous cups and containers that wouldn't taint wine with residual resin or impart a metallic taste from bronze. Imagine the scene. Skilled Syrian craftsmen, many brought to Rome as slaves or freedmen, setting up wood-fired furnaces on the outskirts of the city. They could crank out hundreds, even thousands of beakers a day. Suddenly, glass became cheaper than good pottery. Archaeologists have unearthed massive dumps outside ancient ports like Pozzuoli, filled with thousands upon thousands of identical ribbed cups. Factory rejects? Discarded simply because a rim was slightly lopsided or a bubble too prominent. This wasn't about individual artistic mastery. It was about sheer industrial scale, a relentless drive for efficiency over bespoke craftsmanship. This new method, especially when combined with mold blowing, allowed for the mass production of standardized shapes, making glass widely affordable and practical for a multitude of uses, even replacing pottery in some cases. The era of glass as an exclusive luxury was over. A new age of accessible glassware had begun. Forget images of dark, oppressive industrial complexes. Roman glassworks were more typically brick sheds, strategically located on city outskirts. They were often near riverbanks for easy transport of raw materials and finished goods, and importantly, far enough from densely packed wooden tenements to mitigate the ever-present risk of fire. Inside these workshops, a sophisticated, almost modern system was at play. A typical furnace wasn't just one chamber, it was a multi-zone marvel, often featuring a firebox for combustion, a melting pot where raw materials fused, and an annealing cell. This final chamber allowed finished pieces to cool slowly, preventing internal stress that would otherwise cause them to shatter. The work was relentless. Slaves and skilled laborers fed cordwood around the clock, maintaining temperatures consistently above 1,100 degrees Celsius, a remarkable feat for the time. Production was a highly organized, almost assembly line process, long before the concept of Fordism even existed. Teams divided their labor with precision. One blower would shape the body of a vessel, another would deftly tweak its neck, and a third would skillfully snap the finished piece off the pontil rod. Women and children played crucial roles too, diligently grinding broken glass cullet for remelting, ensuring no precious material went to waste. Boys might run fresh crucibles filled with the natron sand mix from the docks to the furnaces. Estimates from kilns at sites like Jalame, in what is now Israel, suggest an astonishing output of over 50,000 vessels per year from a single site. Multiply that by dozens of such operations stretching across the empire, from Roman York to Alexandria, and you begin to grasp the sheer volume. An entire empire awash in affordable, mass-produced glass. This was not just an invention, it was an industrial revolution centuries ahead of its time. The brilliance of Roman glass wasn't just in the blowing technique, it was also in its precise chemical composition. Roman glass is fundamentally soda-lime silica, but the exact proportions were critical, almost magical. Roughly 65% sand, 20% natron, 10% lime, and about 5% various oxides. Get those ratios wrong, and the results were disastrous. Too little lime, and the glass would weather into a flaky, unstable crust over time. Too much, and it would crystallize, losing its transparency and becoming brittle. The natron, a natural form of sodium carbonate, was the unsung hero, acting as a flux that significantly lowered the melting point of the silica. This allowed Roman furnaces to operate efficiently on readily available wood, rather than requiring the much higher temperatures and specialized fuels needed for pure silica. This vital ingredient had a singular, critical source, the Wadi el Natrun in Egypt. This desert lake's salty crust was carefully mined, packed into baskets, and then embarked on an arduous journey. First sailed up the Nile, then transferred to ships that would carry it across the Mediterranean to glass-making centers throughout the empire. This reliance on a single, distant supply chain proved to be a critical vulnerability. When Egypt's supply of natron dwindled in the 9th century, later glassmakers were forced to switch to plant ash as their flux. While effective, plant ash introduced higher levels of impurities, leading to glass that lacked the low iron clarity and brilliance the Romans had so prized. This single, seemingly minor supply chain disruption was a major factor in the decline and eventual loss of the sophisticated Roman glass technology. It's a stark reminder that even the most advanced innovations can be tethered to surprisingly fragile logistical networks. The Romans, known for their love of novelty and practicality, embraced glass with an enthusiasm that's hard to overstate. They didn't just make simple cups, they pushed the boundaries of what was possible with the material. Consider the intricate cage cups, vessels encased in a delicate, often freestanding lattice of glass threads, so fine you could read through them. These were luxury items, yes, but they showcased the technical prowess enabled by mass production. Glass also found its way into architecture. Initially, small, greenish panes appeared in public bathhouses, offering privacy and insulation rather than clear views. Later, more translucent sheets adorned the villas of the wealthy along the Bay of Naples, a testament to evolving techniques and preferences. The Romans were also pioneers in recycling. Broken glass wasn't just discarded, it was a valuable commodity. Shards were melted down and repurposed into beautiful mosaic tesserae, transformed into gaming dice, or crafted into beads for affordable jewelry. This systematic recycling was an integral part of their economy. When you can buy a drinking vessel for the price of lunch, you're squarely in the territory of disposable goods, much like our modern plastic bottles. This affordability explains why Roman landfills are layered with countless glass shards. For Romans, glass was a utilitarian, disposable item, not a precious heirloom to be cherished for generations. It was a material woven into the fabric of daily life, from a lady's morning toilette to a merchant's business dealings. Among the many tales from ancient Rome, one legend stands out, hinting at a lost technology even more astonishing: vitrum, flexile or flexible glass. The story, recounted by authors like Petronius and Pliny the Elder, speaks of a craftsman who presented Emperor Tiberius with a goblet made of this seemingly miraculous, unbreakable, bendable material. To prove its resilience, the inventor reportedly threw the goblet to the ground. It didn't shatter, it merely dented. Then, with a small hammer pulled from his toga, he easily repaired the damage. The emperor, intrigued but also deeply pragmatic, asked if anyone else knew the secret recipe. When the inventor, perhaps foolishly, declared himself the sole possessor of this knowledge, Tiberius had him beheaded. The reasons given vary. Some say he feared the new material would devalue gold and silver, disrupting the economy. Others suggest he wanted to protect the existing glassmaking industry or simply ensure glass remained breakable, a form of ancient planned obsolescence. While this story is largely considered moral fiction, a cautionary tale about innovation, it does raise fascinating questions. Did Romans understand principles of work hardening or annealing in ways we still struggle to replicate? Some modern researchers have even speculated about the possibility of an early form of borosilicate glass, suggesting a chemical basis for the legend. So, what happened to this incredible industrial capacity? Why did such an advanced technology simply disappear? The answer lies in the tumultuous period known as the Crisis of the 3rd century. Beginning around 235 AD, the Roman Empire was plunged into nearly 50 years of relentless upheaval. Inflation skyrocketed, reportedly reaching an astounding 50% in some regions, utterly destabilizing the economy. Constant civil wars and barbarian invasions fractured the once unbreakable trade routes, making the movement of goods, including essential raw materials like natron, incredibly perilous and expensive. Urban populations, the very consumers who drove the demand for mass-produced glass, shrank dramatically as people fled to safer, more rural areas, and villa estates turned to subsistence farming. Without thriving cities, there were no taverns placing orders for tens of thousands of cups at a time. The large furnaces cooled, the skilled Syrian blowmakers dispersed or passed on, their knowledge no longer in high demand, and the vital natron caravans from Egypt eventually ceased their journeys. By the time Emperor Justinian's court undertook the construction of the magnificent Hagia Sophia in Constantinople in 537 AD, they reportedly had to scavenge old Roman slabs for window panes, because the expertise to produce new, clear, large sheets of glass on an industrial scale had largely been lost. Medieval Europe, in its slow recovery, would largely relearn glassmaking as a luxury, focusing on blowing richly colored pot metal for the breathtaking stained glass windows of its cathedrals. The clear, thin, and affordable vessel glass that defined the Roman era would not make a widespread return until the 19th century Industrial Revolution, when the world would finally rediscover soda-lime chemistry and the continuous coal-fired tank furnaces that mirrored, in principle, the lost Roman system. For over 1,000 years, the sheer scale and affordability of Roman glass remained largely a distant memory, surpassed only by artisanal luxury production. It wasn't until the dawn of the Industrial Revolution that the world began to catch up. In 1820, a German chemist named Friedrich Siemens, brother of Werner von Siemens, made a pivotal breakthrough. He developed the regenerative furnace, a revolutionary design that recycled exhaust heat, dramatically increasing fuel efficiency and pushing temperatures high enough to melt pure quartz sand with sodium sulfate. This innovation was a game-changer, making large-scale, continuous glass production far more feasible. By 1860, the continuous tank furnace was patented in Britain, an evolution of Siemens's ideas. This technological marvel allowed raw ingredients to be fed in one end, while a continuous ribbon of molten glass flowed out the other, ready for processing. Does that sound familiar? It should. It was, in essence, the Roman brick shed scaled up to factory size, powered by coal and advanced engineering, rather than wood and manual labor. The parallels are striking. Then, in 1905, an American inventor named Michael Owen's automated bottle blowing with compressed air and sophisticated metal molds. Owens, who had started working in a glass factory at age 10 as a blower's dog, a boy who kept furnaces fed with coal, developed a machine that could produce 240 bottles per minute, dramatically reducing labor costs and virtually eliminating child labor in the industry. His invention was hailed as the most significant advance in glass production in over 2,000 years, finally matching and then far exceeding the output per worker that Rome had once achieved by hand. We didn't just reinvent what Rome had done, we industrialized it on an unprecedented scale. The legacy of Roman glass isn't just found in textbooks. It's tangible, enduring, and remarkably widespread. Walk any Mediterranean shoreline after a storm, and you might just find wave-tumbled fragments of Roman glass. Smooth, frosted pieces in hues of cobalt blue, sea green, or sometimes etched into opalescent gems by centuries of natural abrasion. These aren't just pretty stones. They are whispers from a forgotten past. In museums from London to Tokyo, you can see Roman beakers bearing simple, poignant graffiti, perhaps "Drink and live forever," scratched by tipsy patrons, a direct connection to everyday Roman life. Archaeologists on Cyprus made a particularly moving discovery: a family tomb sealed with a 40-centimeter-tall glass urn still holding cremated bones. The lid? A cheap, mass-produced blown cup. This single artifact beautifully illustrates how glass seamlessly spanned the spectrum of Roman existence, from the mundane to the sacred, handling both the necessities of daily life and the solemn rituals of death. Even Roman concrete, famed for its extraordinary durability, had a secret ingredient that included glass. Powdered, vitrified shards acted as a pozzolanic additive, contributing to the crystal lattice that allowed Roman piers and harbors to stand for 2 millennia, often submerged in salt water. From the profound to the practical, Roman glass truly outlived its makers, offering us indelible insights into their world. The story of Rome's glass factories offers profound lessons that resonate even today. First, innovation isn't solely about brilliant ideas. It's inextricably linked to robust, reliable supply chains. Remove the steady flow of Egyptian natron, and Rome's sophisticated glass industry simply collapses. This highlights our own vulnerabilities in a globally interconnected world. Second, the impact of scale can fundamentally flip social norms. Once glass became cheap and ubiquitous, Romans stopped treating it as a precious heirloom. They threw parties, tossed their empty vessels into the yard, creating the very yard dumps that archaeologists now eagerly excavate. This shift from scarcity to abundance changed consumer behavior dramatically. Third, knowledge itself is surprisingly fragile. A mere century of political chaos, economic disruption, and fractured trade routes was enough to erase a technology that would take 1,400 years to fully revive. We often assume that our digital storage and global communication make such a loss impossible today. But Rome had libraries too. Some burned, their contents lost forever. Finally, there's the enduring lesson of sustainability. Romans were master recyclers. They melted down virtually every broken piece of glass. A practice our modern glass recycling still largely follows with its reliance on cullet. Perhaps the real shock, then, isn't that Rome invented factory glass so long ago, but that we, with all our modern advancements, ever allowed such an inherently reusable material to become a single-use, disposable item again. Their past, in many ways, offers a blueprint for our future. So, the next time you twist open a glass jar, or gaze through a crystal-clear window, take a moment. Remember that you're holding a direct descendant of a Roman invention, a technology that disappeared for longer than the United States has even existed. If this story of ancient ingenuity, lost knowledge, and surprising rediscovery has blown your mind, then please, tap that like button. Drop a comment below and tell us about the strangest or most fascinating Roman object you've ever encountered. And for more lost histories hiding in plain sight, subscribe to our channel.